Tonight on NewsCenter. Strong and effective UN sanctions plus some more outside that framework is what the leaders of South Korea, US, and Japan believe is needed to punish North Korea. A satellite sent into space by North Korea on Sunday is in orbit, which indicates Pyongyang now has a long-range missile with a 12,000-kilometer range. What does that mean? We have the details. And it's day 4 of the 5-day-long Lunar New Year holiday here in Korea. Everything from the changing gift trends to the latest traffic conditions, we have it covered. It is Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. Welcome to our viewers around the world. Good evening to those in Korea. Hope you're enjoying the second to last day of the Lunar New Year holiday with your loved ones. Thank you for joining us. This is NewsCenter. Various sanctions against North Korea outside the United Nations are also necessary. That's one agreement leaders of South Korea, US, and Japan saw eye to eye in a phone conversation earlier today. 2 days after Pyongyang's rocket launch defying international sanctions, President Park, U.S. President Barack Obama, and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe echoed in one voice that the strongest sanctions ever must be imposed on the reclusive state. Arirang's presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun has this report.
President Park spoke with the leaders of the United States and Japan by phone on Tuesday morning, where they exchanged views on North Korea's nuclear test last month and Sunday's rocket launch. The three leaders had also spoken the day after the North's fourth nuclear test on January 6. President Park stressed that North Korea cannot succeed in simultaneously advancing its nuclear program and its economic development, and that Pyongyang's test of ballistic missile technology cannot be accepted, as it is a direct challenge to global peace and stability. President Obama said North Korea's launch is a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions and a direct threat to the security of the United States and its allies. Washington also reaffirmed that the U.S. stands firm in abiding by its mutual defense treaty with South Korea. In response, President Park expressed her appreciation for Washington's commitment to its allies and affirmed that maintaining a deterrent is the best way to counter the North nuclear programs. Soon after speaking with President Obama, President Park spoke with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The two leaders reaffirmed their common goal of seeking the strongest and most effective UN resolution on North Korea, so the North pays price for its fourth nuclear test and the latest rocket launch. President Park stressed the need for separate bilateral and multilateral sanctions on North Korea, in addition to UN Security Council resolution that's already in the works, with Abe responding that Tokyo is currently in the process of crafting its own set of sanctions on Pyongyang. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is seeking stronger cooperation from the international community in dealing with the North's latest aggressions. Seoul's Foreign Minister Byungse embarked on a trip today to the U.S. and Germany to speak with UN Chief Ban Ki-moon and other officials on this matter. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Kwon So-ah has the details.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Byungse expressed his hope for stronger sanctions on North Korea than in the past before embarking on a trip to the United Nations headquarters in New York on Tuesday. That'll include a meeting with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and Yoon is expected to ask for his cooperation in bringing about the swift adoption of new sanctions on Pyongyang. Yoon also vowed to push for greater support from the UN Security Council, whose 15 member states all agreed on the need for new measures against Pyongyang's latest missile launch.
The UN Security Council released a strong statement. Based on that momentum, I will bolster efforts with UN members and key allies.
And those efforts will include pushing China, North Korea's closest ally, to change its lukewarm stance toward tougher sanctions.
China and Russia were considerably cooperative in issuing Sunday's statement. Various separate discussions with China are also in progress in Seoul, Beijing, and at the UN.
Minister Yoon will continue his diplomatic efforts in Germany, where he will undertake a 3-day trip beginning Thursday to attend the annual Munich Security Conference. North Korea will be on the agenda there too, with Yoon slated to give a speech on South Korea's approach to Pyongyang. He is also expected to hold several other meetings on the issue, including with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, Germany's foreign minister, and maybe with his Russian counterpart too. Kwon-soa, Arirang News.
There was a time when it seemed highly unlikely that THAAD would even be under consideration by Seoul. But all that changed over the weekend with North Korea's rocket launch. The American missile defense system could be deployed in the Korean peninsula as early as next week. Arirang News' Connie Kim reports.
The United States hopes to deploy its Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD system, to the Korean peninsula as soon as possible.
We'd like to see this move as quickly as possible, but we're beginning the consultations now in the coming days with the South Koreans, and we expect that this will move in an expeditious fashion.
The official's remarks come as South Korea and the United States agreed to discuss the matter on Sunday, the same day North Korea launched its long-range rocket. Citing a U.S. official, CNN reported that Washington wanted to deploy THAAD as early as next week, adding to speculation the system could be on South Korean soil soon. On Monday, U.S. President Barack Obama said for the first time that Washington and Seoul were in talks over boosting missile defense capabilities to prevent any possibility that North Korea could hit U.S. facilities or populations. The White House reaffirmed the THAAD system is intended to protect South Korea.
As a result of this launch, the United States has begun formal consultations with our allies in South Korea about moving equipment and technology that could support a THAAD system into South Korea to protect our allies there.
The White House added a THAAD would only be used to counter threats from Pyongyang, a statement echoed by the Pentagon.
If the THAAD system were deployed to the Korean peninsula, it would be focused solely on North Korea and contribute to a layered missile defense.
China is deeply opposed to the deployment, as THAAD's radar has a radius of some 2,000 kilometers, meaning it could cover half of mainland China when deployed in Pyeongtaek, one of the candidate locations of the THAAD system. China's foreign ministry says the deployment of such a powerful piece of military hardware to the peninsula would detract from efforts to maintain peace and security in the region. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Japan has begun crafting its own response. Its lower house unanimously adopted a resolution today condemning North Korea for Sunday's long-range rocket launch. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced that his country has decided to move towards imposing its own sanctions against Pyongyang in hopes of curbing the regime's nuclear and missile ambitions. Oh Jung-hee reports.
Japan's parliament adopted a resolution on Tuesday condemning North Korea's long-range rocket launch, calling it a serious provocation against international peace, and pledged to impose stronger sanctions against Pyongyang.
We've decided to move towards imposing unilateral sanctions against North Korea, aiming to resolve the comprehensive issues of abductions, nuclear weapons and missiles.
Experts say the move is likely to restore sanctions lifted by Japan in July 2014, when Pyongyang pledged to reinvestigate the fate of Japanese citizens abducted decades ago by North Korean agents. Among them is a ban on money transfers to the North and on North Koreans visiting Japan. The entry ban also affects some of the ethnic Koreans in Japan who hold senior positions at their de facto embassy in Tokyo. Prime Minister Abe also vowed to lead the push for stronger sanctions in the UN Security Council against North Korea in hopes that it'll curb Pyongyang's nuclear and missile ambitions.
We will enhance coordination with the United States and South Korea, as well as China and Russia, for a stronger UN Security Council resolution to be imposed as quickly as possible.
Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea's defense ministry has released its interim report on North Korea's rocket capability. The technical analysis comes 2 days after Pyongyang launched a rocket carrying what it claims to be an Earth observation satellite into orbit. Seoul, Washington, and others believe it was a covert missile test. Arirang's national defense correspondent Kim Hyun-bin has the findings.
South Korea's defense ministry on Tuesday released its technical analysis of North Korea's recent rocket launch. The report, compiled by the Agency for Defense Development, says the Gwangbyeong-4 satellite is in orbit and that the rocket's 3 stages separated successfully. The ministry added that it is trying to determine if the satellite is working properly, but said that no signals have been detected so far. U.S. officials with a similar analysis have been quoted by various media outlets, saying the satellite North Korea fired into space is, quote, tumbling in orbit and incapable of functioning in any useful way. Seoul's defense ministry says the rocket launched on Sunday is similar to that Una-3 that was launched in December of 2012.
North Korea's recent long-distance missile launch is similar to the previous missile launch in 2012.
They compared the rocket's trajectory and the altitude at which the satellites entered orbit, which were the same for both. They also examined the time it took both rockets to put the satellite into orbit, which differed by just 17 seconds. The Una-3 had a maximum range of 10,000 kilometers, and the ministry says the range of the rocket launched Sunday is better by about 2,000 kilometers. The ministry also said that although North Korea has developed its intercontinental ballistic missile technology with this latest launch, it has not yet perfected the technology needed to bring a launched missile back through the atmosphere. South Korea was the first to detect the rocket just 50 seconds after it was fired, but the rocket disappeared from radar 6 minutes after the launch, which was also shortly after the rocket shed the fairing that encases the satellite. Seoul and Washington are conducting a joint investigation into the matter, including an analysis of the debris from the rocket's first stage. The ministry says it will be some time before it has any definitive results. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Amid discussions on the pros and cons of deploying a U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD to South Korea, some experts say it could compel China to put greater pressure on North Korea. Our Han Da-eun explains.
America's high-altitude defense system known as THAAD has quickly become the next big issue immediately following North Korea's rocket launch. The Wall Street Journal called THAAD deployment, quote, China's North Korean backfire in a recent editorial, meaning that China's continual support of North Korea has brought Beijing an unwanted result. Some experts have underscored that, saying that even though a THAAD deployment could upset Beijing, it could also help move China in the direction that Seoul and Washington want.
It could make the Chinese realize that if they go on turning a blind eye to North Korea's nuclear program, they're going to encourage a regional arms race that is not in their interests either. So I think the Americans and South Koreans are hoping that this deployment will make Beijing put more pressure on Pyongyang to behave.
Aside from the issue of the missile defense system's deployment are the questions raised about the effectiveness of Seoul and Washington's policies for curbing North Korea's military ambitions. But as the expert pointed out, there are ways for the two allies to slap stronger sanctions on the North even without China's support.
Well, President Obama already has the power to block or freeze quite a broad range of North Korean financial assets, and he has yet to make full use of that power, although he used it against the Iranians. And the South Koreans could scale back North-South economic cooperation at the Kaesong Industrial Zone. So I think there's room for both Washington and Seoul to exert more pressure on Pyongyang, even without Chinese support.
Whether South Korea and the U.S. have the will to exert that pressure and to what extent is the question of the hour. But it appears the two sides don't have much choice or time this time around. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
Now, it is day 4 of the 5-day-long Lunar New Year holiday here in Korea. Yesterday was the actual New Year's Day, so most of you here in Korea are probably enjoying the last bit of time with family or have already hit the roads heading back to the city. Now, for a check on traffic conditions, let's go live to our Lee Ji-hyun. Ji-hyun, so are we seeing backups on the nation's major expressways?
Well, Konyo, actually right now traffic is running much smoother at this hour. The Korea Expressway Corporation says that as of 10 p.m., the drive time from Busan to Seoul will take about 4 hours and 40 minutes and 3 hours and 50 minutes if you're departing from Daegu. And Seoul-bound traffic should continue past midnight until 2 or 3 a.m. Wednesday morning, but things will be running much better tomorrow. That's all for the traffic updates. I'll be back with weather reports shortly.
Now, most people in Korea are enjoying a long 5-day Lunar New Year holiday this year, traveling long hours to spend time with family, eating home-cooked meals, just kick back and relaxing. Most, but not all. Our Shin Se-min went out to meet those for whom it's business as usual, even during these national holidays.
An annual mass exodus is taking place in the country in light of the Lunar New Year holiday. It's also a time when highways are clogged and bus stations loaded with passengers, all making their journey home to spend a long-awaited moment with their family.
And here at Seoul Station, it's no exception. Some 2.8 million travelers will be getting on and off the trains to see their family members living in other parts of the country. But it wouldn't have been possible without those hard at work, even during the national holidays.
At the forefront are train conductors, working extended hours during the holiday period, along with the rail staff that assists countless number of travelers. They even provide directions to patrons waiting on the packed platforms.
I won't get the chance to see my family in my hometown this time, but helping others get to theirs and seeing them with gifts in both hands is rewarding.
And there are those who silently carry on with their duties as usual. City bus driver Lee Jae-won is one of them.
It's my job. Even if I don't get many days off to spend it with my family, it's all part of public service.
With a sense of responsibility and duty, public transportation operators in and out of the city are doing their best to accommodate the public. But it's not limited to transportation workers. Those in the leisure sectors are also sacrificing personal time with family for the benefit of the public.
This time, I chose to be more productive over the holiday as I have prioritized my work over spending time with my family.
While most of the public gets to take advantage of the rare, almost week-long holiday, there are those that are working hard and making sure everything runs smoothly so the rest of society can enjoy a happy and prosperous New Year. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
It's a long-held tradition that Koreans give generous presents to family and friends during the Lunar New Year holiday. Now, they usually hit the supermarkets or department stores for fancy gift boxes of fresh meat or seasonal fruits. Now, that's on the higher end of the price spectrum. For those opting for something more economical, gift boxes of canned foods or body products have also been people's favorites. But times are changing, and so has the holiday gift trend among the Korean people. New gift ideas for the new year. Oh Soo-young has this report.
Stacks of gift sets are piled up high in front of department stores and supermarkets in the weeks leading up to the Lunar New Year holiday. The holidays are time for exchanging gifts with friends and family, and most people pick up one of these gift sets without a second thought. It's a quick and easy way to show you care, and the most popular items tend to be seasonal fruit, meats, toiletries, and health supplements.
설 선물은 어떤 게 딱 생각나세요?
갈비 세트요. 스팸이나 햄 세트나 아니면 뭐 기름 세트 이런 것들 떠오르죠 많이.
곶감이요.
항상 사과 박스나 굴비같이 같은 상품을 받습니다.
Typical of most traditional holidays, these Lunar New Year gift sets can be rather predictable, if not unimaginative. But now it seems more Koreans are opting for alternatives, and they don't need to look that far.
Major convenience stores in Korea have released hundreds of gift sets in time for this year's Lunar New Year holiday. The products are simple but somewhat quirky, ranging from gadgets, action figures, video games, and even small instruments.
We sold us Lunar New Year gifts last year, but this time we released a diverse lineup of items, so a lot of customers are coming by and we're seeing our sales grow.
All it takes is a quick flick through a catalogue. Hand over the address at the till and the gift is delivered before the holiday.
The range of Lunar New Year gifts available at convenience stores reflects the needs of their main customers, who are mostly in their 20s to 30s, taking into account their culture and unique characteristics, as well as new forms of entertainment and play.
Also, forget rushing around for last-minute presents. Simply send a mobile voucher to your friends and family, and they can pick it up for themselves.
The vouchers make finding the perfect present possible in just a matter of minutes, even for someone who may live hundreds of miles away. Gift givers can sift through the thousands of options with a couple of swipes and add a personal message before tapping the screen to pay. Korea's biggest online shopping mall saw their online voucher sales soar by more than 100% last year, and sales rose an additional 30% during the 2 weeks leading up to Lunar New Year's. The most popular gift vouchers were for coffee, restaurants, department stores, and even pizza delivery.
For this year's holiday, there were many cases where people who couldn't go to their hometowns sent their parents a mobile voucher instead to express their gratitude.
Experts say these new ways of buying holiday gifts are part of an ever-changing consumption culture in Korea, which continuously adapts to advancements in digital technology.
We've recently seen mobile consumption increase, but traditional offline consumption is diversifying as well. Now there's a new kind of hybrid consumption, combining offline and online shopping. With this, consumption trends, including forms of gift exchange, will continue to evolve in the future.
Coinciding with these changes in how we shop, the range of Lunar New Year gifts is sure to diversify and become more personal, reflecting the diverse needs of various socio-economic groups in Korea and indicating that what's traditional no longer has to be conventional. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In the wake of North Korea's rocket launch over the weekend, South Korean lawmakers have found a renewed focus on the issue of national security. Naturally, under the spotlight is the counterterrorism bill that's been sitting in Parliament for months now. Lee Min-young reports.
South Korea's rival political parties were quick to condemn North Korea's rocket launch. On the issue of deploying a U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD to South Korea, the ruling Saenuri party said it was high time the country had an extra layer of protection from North Korea's missile threats.
I strongly demand that we come up with firm countermeasures against North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. It's a life and death matter for people here as well.
South Korea's main opposition party suggested the regime's excessive focus on nuclear weapons and rockets could end up backfiring on it.
North Korea should understand that its obsession with the nuclear development will lead to the regime's collapse.
The parties have been monitoring recent developments on the Korean peninsula as tension again threatens to bubble over. A day after the North launched its rocket, a North Korean patrol boat crossed the northern limit line, the maritime border in the West Sea that separates the Koreas. The boat retreated after the South Korean Navy fired warning shots. The development have also refocused attention on a stalled bill at the National Assembly. The rival parties have yet to fully agree on passing an anti-terrorism bill aimed at protecting the lives of South Koreans and improving human rights in North Korea. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
In roughly 2 months' time, this country heads to the polls for the general elections. The nation's political parties are gearing up for that day. Nearly half of the incumbent lawmakers have registered seeking for another term in office. But some are asking for the election to be postponed, with the nation's electoral map still not drawn yet. Our senior parliamentary correspondent Ji Myung-gil reports.
A controversy is heating up over the upcoming parliamentary election on April 13th. The newly formed People's Party says that, with the country's electoral map still in limbo, the election must be postponed to ensure the people's right to choose and to expand opportunities for aspiring politicians. It says the uncertainty over some electoral districts and the disappearance of others could deal a decisive blow to political newcomers who will have less time to make themselves known to voters. The ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition Minju Party have both rejected the proposal. The country's electoral map expired at the end of last year. The two main rival parties have agreed to keep the total number of lawmakers the same at 300, with 253 seats for regional representatives and 47 for proportional representatives. But they are still at odds over whether or not to put the bill to redraw the map in the same basket as other bills on the economy and labor reform. 137 lawmakers have already decided to run for re-election on April 13th. 75 from the ruling Saenuri Party, 56 from the Minju Party, 2 from the People's Party, and 4 from the Justice Party. By region, Korea's central Chungcheongbuk-do province has the highest percentage of lawmakers mounting re-election campaigns, with 88% of incumbent lawmakers having registered already, followed by the capital of Seoul with 81%. The southwestern city of Gwangju had none. With the controversy of the electoral map, there is growing speculation that sitting lawmakers may be putting off the redistricting bill on purpose to give themselves an advantage in their constituencies. Those who have registered can conduct limited campaign activities until the end of March, even though their constituencies haven't yet been determined. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Japanese stocks took a plunge of more than 5%, and the yield on the benchmark government bond dropped into negative territory for the first time today. Twin signs of a flight to safety that threatens to undermine the nation's slow recovery under Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. It's the most dramatic consequence yet of the Bank of Japan's decision to introduce negative interest rates last month. Kwon Jang-ho files this report.
Global investors might have been hoping for a quiet week, with China and many markets in Asia closed for the Lunar New Year. But after markets in Europe and US took a tumble on Monday, Japanese stocks followed suit, taking a turn for the worse on Tuesday. The Nikkei index dropped 5.4% for the biggest single-day drop since May of 2013. The Topix index also fell by 5.5%. Tokyo's banks were the biggest losers, with Mitsubishi UFJ and Sumitomo Mitsui both down more than 8% at market close. The yen also hit a 15-month high against the US dollar during today's session. This affected export businesses including Japan's auto industries, with Toyota, Honda and Nissan all dropping around 6% or more. There was also a historic turn with Japan's 10-year government bond yields turning negative for the first time. These movements came in spite of the Bank of Japan introducing negative interest rates less than 2 weeks ago to try and reinvigorate the economy. Global markets are now waiting for Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen to give word on Wednesday about future US rate hikes. Elsewhere in Asia, Australia's S&P index plunged nearly 3%, while markets in Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand and New Zealand were also down. China's markets are closed all week for the Lunar New Year holiday. Hong Kong and South Korea will reopen on Thursday. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Voters are heading to the polls in the U.S. state of New Hampshire, where Republicans and Democrats are fighting for their party's presidential nomination. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me for more on this race. Now, Bruce, New Hampshire, why is it significant?
Hi, Kanyang. Well, New Hampshire is really important because it's the first actual primary after the Iowa caucuses, and it typically provides a boost to those who do well. Success in New Hampshire can translate into more media attention and donor support. These are long campaigns, and many of the candidates truly rely on donor funds. As far as expected winners, Donald Trump, he's leading Republicans in the polls, and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders from a neighboring state is leading the Democrats.
Now, Bruce, there is a very interesting tradition in the state of New Hampshire now, and several candidates have already won small victories. Now, who won these small but early boost victories?
Sure, this is an interesting process, and you have to get up really early for it. In the tip of New Hampshire, there's a small town called Dixville Notch. It's a township, rather, in an unincorporated community. The people there are allowed to cast their votes at midnight. It's 12 a.m. on Tuesday. This time, 9 votes were cast by residents of the town. Bernie Sanders won the Democratic vote, while Ohio Governor John Kasich won among the Republicans. It's just a very small number of votes. Elsewhere in the state, the candidates made final pitches to voters earlier in the night.
Our job is not to accept what the establishment has told us is the way it is supposed to be. Our job is to break through that and look at where this country should be.
We have to build a wall. Walls work. Just ask Israel. Walls work. They work. I don't mean the little walls. I don't mean the little walls. I mean those walls, you know. I mean serious walls. I mean Trump walls. We're going to... No.
Despite what the polls show now leads by Trump and Sanders, New Hampshire is hard to predict because undeclared voters are allowed to declare party affiliation at the polls ahead of casting a ballot. 2 trains have collided head-on in Germany, killing 9 people and injuring more than 100. German police said at least 10 were seriously injured in the accident on Tuesday. Investigators are trying to determine what caused the collision, which occurred on a single train track. Police indicated the site of the collision made it difficult to retrieve the injured.
Because of the confined space, we are rescuing the injured from the air before they are taken to nearby hospitals.
The German transport minister was at the scene and said it's unclear yet whether a technical failure or human error caused the crash.
Right, Bruce, and over in Hong Kong, over 90 have been injured and 54 arrested following clashes at a very busy junction as people there were getting ready for the Lunar New Year celebrations. What led up to this very massive, bloody riot?
Well, according to police, things got out of control when vendors who were operating illegally in that area refused to stop doing business. This was in the commercial district of Mongkok. About 300 rioters arrived over the course of the clash to support the vendors, and they attacked police that arrived on scene with bricks, stones, and other makeshift weapons.
The SAR government strongly condemns such violent acts. The police will apprehend the mobs and bring them to justice. Also, I send my regards to police officers and members of the media who were injured in the riot.
Rioters also destroyed several police vehicles and public properties, including by setting fires.
And apparently members of the media, journalists, were also targeted in this clash.
Sure, as we heard the police chief say, members of the media were hurt, at least 4, he says. And some other members of the press said that even after identifying themselves with badges and saying they were with the press, they were still attacked by the rioters.
Right, and this is apparently the biggest street violence since the pro-democracy riots back in 2014. So we'll have to wait and see what kind of measures the Hong Kong government will take on these rioters.
They haven't said they're going to go lightly on seeking justice.
All right, thank you, Bruce, for that.
Thanks.
Hello again, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather updates. Temperatures have returned to seasonal averages and it should feel like early March tomorrow afternoon with the daily high peaking to 8 degrees Celsius here in the capital under mostly sunny skies, and we'll be able to breathe in clean air across the nation as well. On that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. Daily low here in Seoul and Daejeon will kick off at -3 degrees Celsius, -4 for Daegu, and Busan and Jeju will start out the day at 3 and 5. And as for the daily highs, Seoul will top out at 8 degrees Celsius, 11 for Daejeon and Busan, and Daegu and Jeju will see a high of 12 and 14 respectively. And warming trend is definitely on the way. On Thursday, daily high here in Seoul will peak to 13, but a mix of rain and clouds will move in from Thursday night, which should linger till Saturday. Then starting Sunday, brief cold snap will return. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that is our broadcast on this Tuesday night. I'm Moon Ganyang. For those of you on the road behind the wheels, make sure you take short breaks in between. Have a safe journey wherever you're headed. Thank you everyone for watching. We hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.